I'm beginning to think. Yes, I'm beginning to think. Thoughts become me.
Welcome to The Cost of Not Paying Attention, hosted by nationally recognized speaker Janine Hamner Holman. Janine knows what it takes to attract and retain world-class talent. Join her here each week on The Cost of Not Paying Attention as we use brain science, leadership, management, and real-life challenges managers face to explore the places where we aren't paying attention.
Welcome to The Cost of Not Paying Attention. I'm your host, Janine Hamner Holman. What am I paying attention to today? So I just got off of a call with a client who was talking about helping her team get ready for annual reviews. And so, like most people, she doesn't love doing annual reviews. She doesn't love getting annual reviews. She's got a team of about 10 people that she manages directly, and then they manage another 60 people. So she overall has a very large team. And she has really been working, this director has really been, this CEO has really been working over the last year in being much more of a coach and much less of a manager, much less of certainly a micromanager. And so she spent a lot of time over the last week as we getting back from the holidays in training her people how to have great conversations with their people. And she went through a whole series of role plays individually with each one of these managers, helping them really feel secure and ready to have these conversations that can sometimes be challenging. And she was telling me about how her manager, who has the most challenging team of all of the teams in the company, had their meetings with their direct reports, and they all went really well. And how proud she was of this leader. And so I got to say to her, yeah, I'm proud of this leader, Therese. I'm proud of Therese too. Proud of how well she did, and I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of how much you are getting out of sort of the player coach and into the coach mentality, where you can really help authentically support your people and get them really ready for the challenges that they are facing. And so that leads me right into our guest for today. A self-described people enthusiast, Dr. Frankie G, or as we know him, Frank, is a diversity, equity, and inclusion, so DE&I, and leadership professional. Frank has 2 decades of experience using evidence-based practices to solidify the qualitative experience of employees in various public and private corporation entities. His focus on relationship building models, along with his facilitation background, provide a unique perspective to experiential and practical applications. Frank holds a doctorate in philosophy, in organizational leadership and management, with an emphasis in personality and in-group, out-group relationships in the workplace, leader and employee relationships as well. His love of continuous, enthusiastic learning is also the foundation of his DE&I message, be curious. And one of the ways that I know Frank is also as an inclusionist. I had never heard that word before Frank and I met, and I love it. I think it's such a great word. So, Frank Gonzalez, welcome to the show.
Thank you, my friend. Happy New Year. Love it. Can we just go back to our intro? If
Yes.
you do not love Janine and what she's about, when you talk about I'm beginning to think, if that doesn't just set the tone for creativity and curiosity, I don't know what will. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for inviting me, and again, Happy New Year to you and everyone else listening.
Yes, Happy New Year. And I love it that you brought up that theme song. That theme song actually was created by the boyfriend of my cousin Julie. Actually, so if you haven't heard it yet, go back and listen to episode 50, Finding Your Voice with Julie Dean. She is my cousin, and that is her and her partner, boyfriend, love interest man, um, singing on that, and he is playing the guitar, and I love that song. So, and they created it for me, so makes me very happy.
Love it.
So, Frank, tell me, what is something that you have become aware of that people aren't paying enough attention to, and what's the cost of that?
The hot seat. The hot seat.
Oh.
Again, hello everyone. Frank, my pronouns are he, him, his. And again, yes, self-described people enthusiast, meaning I'm inspired by people, everything about people. And, that's where I get energized. And I would say what we're not paying attention to a lot in around is the cost of worry. And what I would say is the walls of worry is what I'll kind of label it as. And you think about worry, what worry and the cost that it may have to your organization, the cost it may have to you if you're a leader or have those direct reports, as you were talking about with one of your clients who is having to then, what worry she or he may have, what cost it has to you, and what cost it has to the relationships that you may have. And that's definitely in the realm of inclusion, because it's a lot about you. It's a lot about your environment. We're environmental creatures. I would say a lot of it is, I'll go one analogy for anybody who likes comics. Comics have been in the movies a lot. It's like vibranium. If you're familiar with vibranium, it's a fictional metal, but it has the ability fictionally to absorb so much energy, but it also has the ability to put that energy back out, right? But it's the energy of worry that's really we're not paying attention to, and there's a huge cost to that. So I'd love to dive into that. I'm sure you have questions about that. It was actually what you and I were talking about a little earlier too, is just the environmental things that happen in our life that cause us to worry and may actually lead to some parts of our exclusion as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I love that has happened with this focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is the realization that, wherever we meet another human being, we are coming into their movie, which has been playing for however long it has been playing. And we don't know what the background is. We missed, the whole first however many years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of that movie. And so we're coming in wherever we're coming in, and we only know what it is that they feel safe to reveal to us. So, as my listeners know, I always try to be honest and genuine and transparent. As you, Frank, know, I got a phone call this morning
I can witness that, yes.
from my mom, letting me know that my dad, who turned 85 last September, that my dad is in the hospital with COVID. He had been diagnosed with COVID on Tuesday, and last night around 11 o'clock, he said to my mom, "We need to go to the hospital right now." And when they got in the car, he said to her, "You need to run all the red lights. This is an emergency." And so obviously, right now he's been admitted to the hospital, but he's still in the emergency room. And so he's not comfortable. He's still on a gurney. And so thinking about my beloved father in the hospital by himself with COVID, coughing. I was able to talk to him for only a couple of minutes on his cell phone because since they just sort of ran out of the house, he doesn't have a cell phone charger. And an enormous amount of my brain space right now, and probably all of my heart space, is with my dad. And they're in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I am in Altadena, California. And I said to my mom, I was just there over the holidays, for which I'm very grateful. And the presumption is my dad is going to get through this and be okay. Knock on wood. And we don't know yet how it's all going to play out. And so I said to my mom, would you like me to come back home and be with, really, the purpose of that is to be with her. And she said no. And at any moment, that may become necessary. And so, but I've, done several work calls this morning. We are here now doing this podcast interview. I have another couple of meetings after this. And that may very well not come up in those meetings. And it's a big part of what's going on with me right now. And if I were in a meeting and somebody said something that rubbed me the wrong way, or triggered me, or just made me think about my dad in a way that made me feel more worried or fearful, I could have a big reaction. My emotions right now, as you may be able to tell, are very close to the surface. And so this conversation around our mental health, around us feeling like we are an integrated person. And if I have things going on that I need or want to be able to share in a work context that have nothing to do with me as a worker, but have everything to do with me as a human, I think we're still finding our way through how do we navigate that. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
First of all, I've told you already, but I'll say it again. First of all, thank you for just saying what's on your mind, and I'm sorry, and hopefully everything does go well. And I think you said it right. I think it's also about being there for your mom. And the other thing you said, outside of the personal, that what's going on, is how that relates to work. Right. Absolutely. The analogy I have, and I'm just picking up something that I have around me right now, right, is, and you can do this in your mind or doodle something, whether you like bar graphs, you like circles, or you like, I'm just looking at a pen, about who you are personality wise. And this is going to get into inclusion and belonging, but who you are is about 60 to 65%, give or take, regardless of other, and I'm talking about just who you are personally. Right? The other piece right here, when I was talking about being environmental, is all those environmental reactions that might be temporary. Now, temporary, I'm gonna use that word very, very casually, should I say. Yes. Temporary to me might be 6 years. It might be 6 minutes for you. I don't know. Right. But absolutely, who we are, when we talk about authenticity, being a servant leadership, transformational, EQ, any model that you subscribe to, it's really hard when that 40% right there, or 35%, 35 or 40%, it's what's going on. And in the workplace, that's really hard to bring those things up when everything's about deliverables, time, what's going on, we're going to meet, or let's meet about meetings, let's do this, let's do that. And it's worry. And the last thing I'll say about worry, when you think about worry, you're like, okay, so, but what about other things, right? That creativity thing. Well, worry will not only hinder or bring to a halt or decrease relationships, again, with yourself, with others, with your leader, with your organization. It could also hinder other things like openness, creativity, your sense to put things in order. I'm scrambling, right? To be a little bit more warm with others if you're focusing on other things, to be a conflict manager. Maybe that's what part of your role is, to manage the conflict of others. I'm already dealing with this. As they say, my cup is full. So everything you said it's all research based, but it's also practical. We're not paying attention to our worry and what can we do about that. First thing you did right there was vocalize it, and we could talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But those are my thoughts about it, and those are definitely barriers to being included and also feeling connections with belonging.
Yeah, and part of the reason that I try to be transparent and authentic and vulnerable in this podcast is to model that for other leaders, and that's part of what it takes to create an organization where that is accepted. If I have a team of 100 people, 200 people, 10,000 people who are part of my organization, and I am never vulnerable, they are not going to feel safe to feel vulnerable. And so the more, so the more that we can normalize it, the more that we can say, yeah, shit happens in people's lives. And
that a bumper sticker on Forrest Gump. Yeah, bring that back, right?
It
put it on
happens.
Brand it.
Because it does. And if we want to pretend that I am functioning at 100% right now, it's bullshit, right? I mean, I am not physically able, I am not mentally able to function at that level. I was talking with my mom and I said, Dad's still on this gurney. And I think what would be really great is if you could bring some pillows and a phone charger to him at the hospital. And her response, I mean, it was so great. Her response was like, well, what do I put that in? I said, well, so we have those tote bags, and you could put it in that. She's like, okay, but they don't zip. I said, Mom, it's pillows. It doesn't matter if it doesn't zip. It's like, okay, so then how will I identify? He said, so you can just take a Sharpie marker and write on the outside of it. Well, then what if they don't let me bring it to him? Well, Mom, you could call the hospital. Well, what would I say? Mom, would you like me to call the hospital? So I called the hospital, but when, of course, this is her husband. They've been married for 61 years. And he's in a scary state. And she didn't sleep last night. And so, like, helping her think all of this through, as obviously as a daughter, but also as a leader in our family, that's part of what we get to do with our people, because we can get totally taken out by worry. We can get in a place where we can't really think something through logically. My mom could not figure out like how to get a phone charger and some pillows to my dad. My mom is a very very smart woman. But the worry and the lack of sleep was completely inhibiting her ability to function. And so stepping in a way that supports her, that doesn't undermine her, but that like lifts her up, holds her in this time. And I also said, okay, Mom, so if I'm not hopping on a plane, who of your friends are you reaching out to so that you've got support around you in this time? Mm-hmm. And so we went through different people and I mean, obviously this is my mom. I am the oldest child. I am the first person that she called to really have a conversation about this. And it's not that different from an employee, a valued employee who is coming into work and seeming a little off. And so, like,
So
how do we begin, Frank, from all of your research, how do we begin to normalize that that's an appropriate thing for a boss to check in on? Hey, Janine, you seem a little off, and I just want to check in. Is everything okay? And how can I support you?
right, you have woven in two main things, and I think it's where you need to start. Right, number one is that home life over here. Those are natural reactions to what's normalized at home.
Right.
Mom, yeah, okay, you're calming each other, reducing each other's worry so that you can think through.
Absolutely.
Openness is highly correlated with inclusion and
Yeah.
creative thinking, right? But you're helping each other reduce that worry naturally.
Yep.
The other thing is when you said it's no different than the workplace, it's not. But it's also understanding that where we are in the workplace is it's not normalized everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right.
So
In
your
most places, it's not.
organization's reactions or lack of reaction or
Right.
just no reaction at all is because it's unnatural. The human
Yeah.
experience is unnatural. That's why I started with organization. And organizationally, I'm talking about your as highest leaders. When we talk about diversity and representation and going into inclusion, the action, that's why it starts there.
Yeah.
If you want to really see where organization is at, right? You talk about organizational culture and things, right? Those formulas, there's a lot of formulas out there, but basically the personality of your highest leaders in whatever function or in your C-suite or layers below that in your senior
Right.
leadership teams, plus behaviors or minus behaviors, plus whatever values you put up on the wall or virtually at
Yep.
remote first workforces is really indicative of your culture. So if they're not normalizing it up there, it starts with the organization. We always
Yeah.
focus on managers and say managers have the toughest job. You're balancing the vision of the company and the priorities, and you're also managing actual people and their functions.
Yeah.
It actually starts with organizations first,
Right.
right? Then leaders, then really other people around you, and
Yeah.
then you. And how do you do that? So I offer a simple, like you have to vocalize it. And you also, for those that are really trying to normalize it for themselves, you have to
Mhm.
start writing it down.
Yeah.
And a simple exercise that I recommend is my organization worries me when. Write down a few things.
I love that.
Just start to
My
think
organization worries me when.
when. And this is personalized. This is for you. Don't worry about
Yeah.
anybody else. That's the thing about inclusion belonging, where it's all about you. I could put some framework up here, what expectations of that organization, but what worries you? And then layer it down. My leader worries me when. Others worry me when. I worry when. Dot dot dot.
Yeah.
Right? 1, 2, 3 things. Not a long list. Not you
Right.
don't have to be. And start thinking about that and normalize it for yourself so that you understand what your expectations are and what drives worry, so that you can help reduce that, so that you can bring those things to yourself. Right? I would say the second thing is when my organization worries, and then again the
Ah.
same thing. So
Uh-huh.
so it's kind of like what worries, and then when they worry, it's almost now getting to an action. So when they worry, I freak out.
Right. Right. Right.
I go for a walk, I yell, I do things that the alcohol consumption and other things like that, where they're not the best for us, they're temporary fixes. They're supposed to make us feel good, not better. Think about that. Good, not better. Have a good time, but the coping is going to be temporary.
That's
and I would
right.
say the very last part, because it's a 3 layer, it's, when they, what they, and the last thing is, what lowers your worry. So you actually fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
Walking lowers my worry when this happens. Talking with a friend lowers my, what lowers your worry when it comes to organization, leader, yourself, and relationships with others. Because before you can ever make that leap, regardless of race, ethnicity, regardless of gender, regardless of colorism, any other factors in the realms, accessibility, abilities, we can't get into being included or belonging unless you have those. And in my specific research, I'll end here. My specific research really focuses on 4 different areas when we talk about the in-group, out-group, and relationship. And it's built off of Lyden and Maslin's MDM, LMX, for those who are familiar. So leader membership exchange. It's a relationship between leader and member. So it's the realization that we are treated different because we are different. Right. Now, what do we do about that? And what the layers of relationship progress or regressing that we have that takes place. But in professional respect, that's like who you are, your credentials, your contributions, etc. Worry, what I have surveyed, and I actually looked at this, several hundred full-time employees that actually mirrored the demographics of our labor force. So it's a really great study. When you worry, that lowers the professional respect in your mind. That you have. And also when I think about worry, I want to clarify something. When I say worry, I'm also talking about like constantly seeking approval and like kind of second guessing yourself. When we talk about
people
like
pleasers and yep,
you start to like worry so much and you second guess everything. It's like losing your keys and they were right in front of you the entire time. What happens, right? They were right there.
Right.
But it's professional respect, just credentials, who you are, your work contribution, right? Lowers that. The other part is contribution, the residual effort you put in. So, you're trucking along, Janine's like that. She's trucking along. She's got one meeting, this meeting, she's got more meetings. The whole day went by. You might have actually put in 11 hours and nobody asked you to do that.
Right.
But you're so caught up in your work and you love it. And you actually, feel like people see that, you resonate, and you're just in good mood right here. But this is still transactional. These 2 layers are transactional. Worry reduces your feelings that contribution is really being received. It's all about you. The other 2 higher layers of you getting really included and really getting that exposure, mobility, accessibility, and really having what I call being included or that connection, right? These higher layers, loyalty, and also this kind of affect that you hear a lot in research, but like that friendship that like my boss is like somebody I would hang out with, even though I don't, I may not have a mortgage, somebody I would talk about, even though like they're not that important to really be talking about, but I would if I did, because I see them very friend-like. But in those 2 higher levels, worry also significantly reduces your ability to really feel like the loyalty or affect, that friendship like state is there. And I'll say about loyalty, and this is where inclusion really is. Loyalty is really about what would you feel like your manager or your organization would say about you when you're not in the room, Janine. When you're not in the room.
Yeah.
That you just feel like, if I gave you a scale 1 to 5, 5 for sure, 5 out of 5, Janine would be talking praises about me, whether I'm in the room or not. And that's what gets me the exposure to be included in those meetings, to get mobilized into pockets of where I'm not represented, right?
Yeah.
But if I worry so much, I'm really going to be marking a lot of 2s and 3s. There's a lot of room for improvement, and it really starts with me. So I know I gave you a lot there, but that's years of research in like 5 minutes. Did I do all right?
No, you were brilliant, Frank. So Chaz, can you pop up for a second the drivers of the Great Resignation? I want us to pull in a little bit more around. That's great, actually. That's the one around imposter syndrome. That's perfectly fine. So I found this graphic and I love it. And imposter syndrome is that feeling that we get when we feel like, oh man, they are going to figure out that I don't know everything, or that I don't know as much as I pretend that I do, or I really don't belong in this room, in this conversation. We all at some point have this feeling. And so I loved this this pie chart, you know, people who get imposter syndrome, this amount of people, other people who get imposter syndrome, this amount of people, literally everybody else, because they get imposter syndrome too. And thanks, Chaz. So, and there's a direct connection between imposter syndrome and feeling like we belong. And so I wanted to put this out to you to sort of expound upon a little bit this idea around imposter syndrome and its connection to DE&I.
First of all, can I just say I love the graphic, not just because of what the content is, but it's perfectly imperfect as far as the doodle. It's
Exactly, right?
The concept there, and is it like perfectionism part of worry sometimes too? What are other people going to say, and how you show up, and things like that.
Yep.
When I say that worry and how that is, I want people to understand that it's almost like Einstein's the acquiring of knowledge. Now you feel even less knowledgeable because now you're down this deep oasis of like unknown, and you realize, am I the only one that sees this? That there's just so much still more to explore? Well, exactly. So education, although great, no matter what, people at all levels of education feel that. And even in when I've done my own research, again, with several hundred professionals, you feel that sense of like, do I belong here? Because there's always somebody better, more knowledgeable, says it a different way. How do you combat that, right? So that's just education. And then the pay. If you've ever actually, I want to make fill in the blank
X amount of money, right?
And you're like, once you get there, if you've never experienced it before, you're like, do I deserve this kind of money? I mean, first couple of times you're all excited, you're not worried.
Right. No, you're not worried at all. You're like, woohoo!
Yeah, somebody's gonna take this away. Like, let me check my bank account a couple of times before I spend too much. But after a while, it normalizes, and then the imposter syndrome, the worry still comes up.
Yep.
Right. And you're still like, do I deserve this kind of pay?
Right.
And actually, when you're interviewing, that can come across sometimes. If you're looking for new opportunities, they see you at a certain title, a certain role, a certain pay. And let's say like you're just looking for something that makes you happy and you're willing to go down from whatever level to this level.
Yeah.
And they will actually scope you out and say, are you sure? And you look at you like, am I sure? That correlation there, again, it's beyond gender. It's beyond race, ethnicity, right? Those are still factors. One thing I didn't mention in my research too is that race, ethnicity always plays a significant factor in all of those 4 levels too. It's an added layer. But worry comes first, and that starts with you. What do you do to combat that? Simple things is normalizing it once again and say, you know what? Worry is also all of that, not that bad. That means you're human, right? Can we just humanize things for a little bit, Janine? Just say,
please.
It's okay to be worried a little bit.
Yes, it is totally okay to be. I mean, it is human.
For yourself, right? It just a little worry is okay. I'm saying when it actually paralyzes you in thought, what do you do?
Yeah.
Vocalize it, write it down, then take actions, which is what those 3 steps I was really getting at, to figure out what works for you. Because I can give you advice all day long. That's not going to stick.
Nope.
Adult learning in general, right? Yeah, I'm getting you to think. I'm hopefully getting you to feel a certain way. Now, what to do, that's completely up to you. But I am giving you steps on what to do. Yeah. Again, vocalize it, write it down. What works for you. And just understand that it's completely normal to worry. That imposter syndrome is always going to be there. And let me tell you, the more money you make, the higher titles you get, the more exposure
bigger
you
get. It gets.
That imposter syndrome is big. And Janine knows firsthand with some of the clients that she may have, right? Where it's like, I am the fill in the blank title.
Right.
I don't know if I'm a great leader.
Yeah.
You're just questioning that. You're like, what do your engagement scores say? What did this say? That doesn't matter right now. I'm paralyzed in thought, Janine. Right? I don't know what to do.
No, like, I mean, I have this conversation with CEOs. I have this conversation with surgeons. I have this conversation with people who, when we think of sort of the top of the mountain, that's where these people are. And they have it too. I mean, so it's back to that normalizing. I also find for myself, Frank, and I wonder what your thoughts are about this. There are some things that I find really helpful in some situations in calming me down. And then there's other things in other situations that I find helpful in calming me down. And then there's a few, like, no matter what's going on. So like a hug from my husband, that's always going to make me feel better no matter what is going on. Being at the beach, it's always going to make me feel better. The
And the
sound.
song again, it's a thing with the beach. Oh,
That's
man.
right. That's right.
Nirvana.
Right. And so for some of us, it is specific songs, it's specific sounds. For some of us, it's running. For some of us, it's reading a book. For some of us, it's playing a game on our phone or our computer, or something that gets us out of our head. For some of us, it's getting into action about whatever that thing is that worries us. So is that typical, that like there's some things that are really helpful in specific situations and other things that are helpful in other kinds of situations?
Absolutely. And for those that are listening, I encourage you to, you can see several models of it, but like the cognitive bias codex, cognitive bias codex, search it, find an image of it. There's several different, whatever resonates with you, keep it. Really, we're talking about decisions. So what's worrying me, it's making decisions about career, about my family, like you're doing, just personal work,
Right.
balance, or imbalance, and this worry. How do you bring that down, whatever temporary state you're in? Because you're going to consistently have to do that. Who you are right here, this could be broken down, that wall of worry, or really it's more like chiseled.
Right.
And that cognitive bias codex, my reaction to that, it's really in 4 categories, and then I'll just kind of bring that down. But you're talking about like memory. So some songs, conversations, experiences bring up memory, right? So whatever helps calm that. So memory is huge, right? So that's the M, right? The A is a lot of ambiguity. So are you worried about a situation you've never been in? And that's where usually like a conversation with someone else that you feel that has more experience in you, and mentorship and guidance and sponsorship, that really helps. How do I navigate ambiguous situations I've never been in? Because that can create worry, and that can actually halt your decisions and who you are, right? And the last 2, so there's M, right? Memories, or emotional connections. A, or ambiguity, and how your mind really works, because it is mind, leadership, everything. It's who you are, right? Influence, or acceptance of influence. I'd say the last 2 are information overload. I just don't know what I'm looking at. Hospital forms for your father, unfortunately, much less an ambiguous and an information overload slide deck I've been given by my leader or my organization, and it's worrying me because I don't know where I'm looking at. I'm gonna have to Google the Google stuff. And the last piece is just that speed, right? That speed of information. That's where the real bias starts coming in, right? So I give up on these other things critically, and it happens within a split second or seconds, and then all of a sudden now I'm just relying on intuition and experience. Right. But again, it's still being halted, and you're going to revert back to prior experiences. And when you think about leadership in general, going back to overarching leadership, right? What's the Greek philosophy of, great leaders learn from every experience and person.
Right.
Mediocre leaders rely on experiences, and horrible, it really doesn't say horrible, it's like a curse word or something, but horrible leaders have all the answers.
Right.
So let me go back to, it's okay. You normalize it. Memory, ambiguity, information overload, and speed are part of all our worry and decision making. How do you overcome it? Vocalize it, normalize it. It's okay. And seek conversations with others. I think that always helps. And that's the belonging, the connection. Being able to connect with others, right? Because inclusion, I think about collaborative work environments, and I think about inclusion, I think about the contributions I have, and that loyalty, and my boss talk good about me, and be included in decisions. Okay, that gets in, that belonging and decision making, but also connection, that connection piece. That's what's huge, right? What's the connection you need to get that worry lower, so that these other really great things about Janine and all others really flourishes? And if it just takes 5 minutes at every start of every meeting, or the last 5 minutes of every meeting, that's been highly effective. I believe it was Microsoft or one of the big companies that made that like a standard during the pinnacle of COVID and remote first.
Right.
Is before we start the meeting, how's everyone doing? You
How
can do this
are you doing?
one-on-one. You could do it team meetings
Yep.
or the last 5 minutes. We're going to end the meetings early. Let's just shoot the, you know what? How's everybody doing? Those are things you can incorporate. People need that. So if you're going to be a great leader, do that. If you're going to be a great follower and how you accept influence, expect that. I need time to tell you, I got some crap going on at home right now, and it's preventing me from being my best self.
Yep. And your manager, your leader, I mean, they want to know that information because it's going to help them support you better in getting the things done that need to be done. And there may be some time critical things that may need to get, shuffled around because you're not able to be your best right now. And, we so often, we fall into this, it's not really a syndrome, but it's sort of a syndrome of feeling like I need to have it all together all the time.
Very much.
And the reality is nobody has got it together all the time. None of us.
I'm pointing at myself for anybody that might be visually impaired or you're just listening in versus the video. Yeah, I'm pointing at myself and saying, nope, I know I don't have it together. And I'm vocalizing it though.
Exactly.
Now what do I need to do to get it together right now?
Right. Now. So, okay, I don't have it all together. Now, what do I need to do to be able to function as best as I can at the moment? And then what do I need to do to get back to be able to fully function? And it may be that some things, some circumstances need to change. My dad needs to get out of the damn hospital. That will help. But I don't want him out of the hospital until he's been helped and healed. He's coughing up a storm right now. And so I want him to get the treatment that he needs and then to be able to go home and be with my mom. And, until that happens, I will not be fully functioning. And so then what do I need to support me to be as good as I can be, given the circumstances in which I'm operating? Mm-hmm. And the reality is, this is what is happening with me right now on the 2-year anniversary of January the 6th. And, other people may be having reactions to the fact that it's the 2-year anniversary of January 6th. And other people may be having reactions to whatever's going on in their own lives. Mm-hmm. And so, as we've been talking about, figuring out how to normalize those things, I think is where the game is at.
This is, I don't know if anybody else is in the field, but I'm in the field, so I'm just kind of processing it right now. And this is just, you think about all this, and it's before you can start to like have those expectations of the organization, your leader, of others. That is part of that. Know thyself. Well, what worries you? And we're not paying attention to worry, but a worry again significantly reduces so many other factors of who you are. We're talking about authenticity. There's, several other people you have to work with and react to in that authentic environment where authentically, I love to curse all the time. I'm not sure if every other curse word, I don't know if you know this as a fact. You like to curse? But every other word out of my mouth may be a curse word. If that's my authentic self, and I've met people like that, and that's just who they are, and you get to know them, you're like, that's actually kind of charming. I don't know. It's weirdly charming. That's just not me.
Right.
But they show up that way, and they just, every time maybe they, as new people, it becomes a normalized thing. We're like, hey, no worry, it's I just curse loud. I'm sorry, let me know when I'm doing too much, right?
Right. And that's one of those things to decide as an organization, like what is our policy around swearing? Listeners to the show know that I have a policy around swearing, which is that I swear for accuracy, not for impact. And so if it's going to be like, oh, she said a bad word, That I never swear for that reason. You
You're
know,
awesome. Yeah.
at some point today I said it's bullshit because whatever it was in fact bullshit.
Yeah, and some people love to
Like,
hear that, and that's fine. I'm
right,
just using a funny like example, but
of
again, yeah,
course, but there are
it's
some people
yeah.
who their language is just laced with profanity, and it's just the way that they talk.
Mhm.
And then the organization has to decide. Our episode, I think, last time was about this idea around, do we really want people to bring their whole selves to work? What does that really mean? And if at your organization, part of how you as an organization need to present is people don't swear, then that part of that person just doesn't get to be expressed at work. And there's all kinds of parts of us that, to have the organization work well, actually don't get to be expressed at work. And so, but I think we're at this place where it's really important to get very conscious about what do we mean when we talk about bringing your whole self to work, and how do we have people be able to be authentic and be able to be genuine and be able to feel included and like they belong, and also be really clear about, my rights end where your rights begin. So it may be that I have certain beliefs that are not appreciated here in this organization, and that just gets to be a part of me that does not get expressed at work. But we as an organization need to set the norms so that people are really clear about it, and it gets to be consistent throughout the organization. So it's not like, well, Frank gets to swear, but Janine doesn't get to swear. Nope, that's not how that gets to work. Well, Frank, this has been such a delight. And there have been a couple of times when I've looked at the clock and I've thought, oh man, we've been trying to have this be a 30-minute show, and we've been trying to have more graphics and visual things. And I just love and adore you so much that I just got totally caught up in this conversation. When you and I were first talking about this, we said, all right, the Frank and Janine show is going to be called Laughter and Tears.
Oh, yeah.
We have done it today.
I love it. Stay tuned.
Yeah, there will be a Frank and Janine show part 2. More laughter and tears to come your way in the future. Frank, it has been a delight. I just adore you, and I adore what you're up to creating, both for your organization and for the world. So thank you so much for sharing yourself with us today.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
On behalf of Janine Hamner Holman, thanks for paying attention. This has been the cost of not paying attention. Head on over to our website, www.janinehamner.com/podcast, for access to the show notes as well as additional resources. Remember, great leaders make great teams.